Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to bring you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
This episode is brought to you by Organifi. You know, the one thing that literally every single diet and nutrition expert that we've had on the show seems to agree on is that we need to eat more veg and get our greens and consume all natural products. But let's be honest. How many of us actually have the time? Well, recently I had the opportunity to meet some of the folks over at Organifi, and I've been absolutely blown away by them and their product. You see, Organifi is an organic superfood green juice powder that literally covers all your nutritional bases without having to eat 5 bowls of kale. It saves you loads of time, loads of money, and a lot of chewing. And really all you have to do is add water and drink it. So to check it out and save an incredible 20% off your first order, visit Organifi.com. That's Organifi.com and use coupon code SUPERHUMAN at checkout. This episode is brought to you by the Become a Super Learner Masterclass. Now, I've been telling you guys about the Masterclass for a few weeks now, so I'm actually just going to take a step back and let a good friend of mine tell you guys about his opinion on the Masterclass.
Hi, I'm Nelson Dellis, 4-time USA memory champion and a huge fan of the Super Learner Masterclass. You know, when I started memory techniques years ago, I wish that I had had all the resources that are available on this course. Jonathan does a great job teaching it, and it's a fantastic course, and I highly recommend it. It'll take you just as far as I am without as much time that I had to put in. So enjoy it, get into it, and keep your memory active.
To learn more, to sign up for a free trial with no credit card required, or to redeem an exclusive discount for podcast listeners only, please visit jle.vi/learn or visit becomeasuperlearner.com. Greetings, super friends, and welcome to today's episode. You guys, today we are diving back into one of the most important aspects of health, one of the really big 3 pillars of health, and that is sleep. Because today we are talking to Mark Aramli. He was an engineer working on the NASA Spacesuit in the 90s. He has worked with BMW developing the Hydrogen 7. He's just a super, super smart engineer. And what Mark and I wanted to talk about was his most recent venture, a company called BedJet, and the research they're doing around sleep. We all know sleep is really, really important. We all know that it is a force multiplier in improving our health. Well, Mark shares a new perspective that we haven't gone into as much on the show, and that is how you can use temperature to manipulate and ultimately improve your sleep. So he's worked with, like I said, astronauts. He's worked with the US Army and Marines. Really has a lot of valuable information to share. I think you guys are really going to enjoy the episode. And if you do, please make sure to let us know on Twitter or in the comments. All right, guys, without any further ado, let me present to you Mr. Mark Aramli. Mr. Mark Aramli, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Absolute pleasure. I'm really excited to learn a little bit. I think 2 of the best episodes that we've done, in my opinion, most life-impacting episodes we've done, have been about sleep. And I think you bring a whole different dynamic to this sleep hacking that we haven't really had on the show yet. So I'm pretty stoked.
Oh, fantastic. I'm looking forward to sharing.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we have a little bit of a delay on the line, but we'll power through it. Before we get into all the sleep stuff, tell us a little bit about your work and kind of your career trajectory in your words. I know you did some work with NASA. I know you've been around the sleep space and the biohacking space for quite some time. Tell us about that.
Right. So, I started life out as an engineer. I was an engineer on the NASA Spacesuit program. It was really cool. Astronauts are your customers. It was a neat place to be. I've worked in a broad variety of industrial and commercial tech settings. So, after that, I was in aerospace for a while. Then I went to work for a company that was helping BMW create their first hydrogen-powered car. I worked for another startup company and helped develop the first biogas to energy plant in France. Did large lithium batteries, hybrid buses, special gadgets for the military, and ultimately found my way to starting up BedJet and creating some really interesting sleep technologies that are based around some fundamental biohacks that can improve your sleep. And that journey through all those different technology areas really brought me to the area of sleep, and it's been a fun place to be. It's so impactful on our lives, and being able to draw on technologies, from the aerospace and automotive and space and NASA and, all these different sectors, and apply them into sleep technology has really been a fun journey for me.
Definitely. So let me ask this. I mean, hydrogen cars are pretty cool. Spacesuits are pretty cool. Why sleep? Why change gears and go into sleep? I think a lot of people would say, isn't that a big calming down?
I wound up there by accident, like most great things in life. So I was working on a bed technology, a sleep technology, as a hobby project. And it really relates to me personally. I have a lot of trouble sleeping, especially as I've gotten older. I tend to sleep very hot, and I also hate getting into cold beds in the winter. And purely on a hobby project basis, I started to develop a machine that would provide on-demand climate control for your bed, instant heating and cooling. And I designed and built the first Frankenstein version of this thing on my kitchen table. It was never a business. It was never a career calling. It was not some deep longing to get into the sleep industry. But once I built it, I didn't know if it would work. I tried it out. It did work. And then I had a whole bunch of other people try the machine out. And everyone gave feedback like, wow, Mark, this thing feels really good. But what I noticed when I started using the machine, just for pure comfort purposes, I started sleeping much better. And then I applied all of my brain power as an engineer to understanding the science of sleep and the human physiology behind it, and causality and correlation and all the elements that drive, how do we go to sleep? What helps us sleep? And it turns out that there's a tremendous amount of medical research and sleep science research around how temperature impacts our body's sleep cycles. And they're very, very fundamentally connected. From that point, I realized there's something here to this machine and this biohacking approach where we can use a little bit of technology, not just to help ourselves be a little more comfortable, but actually to improve our sleep and get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer and wake up more refreshed. And that has been the last 4 years of my life and 100% of my focus.
I love it. So I think what everyone is wondering, and we covered this a little bit with Nick Littlehills, but I think it bears repeating because sleep really is the force multiplier. And if you're not sleeping well, then nothing else is working well. How do we improve our sleep? I mean, I know climate is a factor, as you said. I've heard 18 degrees Celsius. That seems really cold to me. No one's ever really explained to me, like, should the blankets be thick and then it's cold on my face? Break all this stuff down for me. I've interviewed people on this and I still don't really understand. Is my body supposed to be cold? Is it supposed to be breathing cold air?
Sure. No, I've got some really enlightening medical studies to talk about and research to talk about. So first, we don't need to cover how important sleep is. Everybody you talk to who understands medical health, sports science, whatever, will tell you that sleep is as important to our health as exercise and nutrition. And most people don't get enough sleep. So we're starting out in this place where, 61% of people, this is a statistic from a survey, actually crave sleep more than sex. 41% of people are reporting their sleep needs are just not met during working days. So this is a big issue. And there are ways that temperature can profoundly impact sleep. So if we look at some of the research that's been done, there's a lot of it coming out of Europe. The Dutch Institute of Neuroscience and the U.S. National Institute of Health have all sponsored studies to understand, what are the implications of temperature on the human body for sleep, and can they be manipulated? And the process of going to sleep runs like this when it goes to temperature. So the human body is designed to use body core temperature slowly cooling as a trigger for sleep. And if you track human body core temperatures over the course of the night, and this is almost universal for all people, men and women, as you start to enter your sleep stages, your body core temperature drops, and it slowly drops over the night. The very interesting thing is that as you approach the moments of wakefulness, your body core temperature starts to rise. And so there's definitely some causality and correlation between temperature and your body. Now, what gets even more interesting is that studies were done to see if manipulating the temperature of your body could actually trigger faster sleep onset or wakefulness. And the data is very compelling. What these researchers found was actually by warming the skin when you first go to bed, you can trigger faster onset of sleep. And then keeping you cool once you're there can promote the sleep. And then finally, adding a little bit of heat will wake you up. Now, when we put that in the terms of a medical study, it sounds, very PhD, right? There's a lot of data behind this. But if we think about it intuitively and the things we know, right? How many times do we all wake up at 3 a.m. because we're too hot and we throw the blanket off to cool off? And then, an hour later, we're comfortable, and an hour later we wake up again because we're too cold and we got to pull the blanket back on. So the keys here to the research are you start with warming, then you stay cool during the night, and heating is a trigger to wake up. Now, let's talk about why that first step of warming has an impact on you. And again, when you intuitively think about some things that help people go to sleep, a hot shower, a hot bath before you go to bed, a lot of people find that very relaxing and find it helps them sleep. There's science behind it. When you warm the skin, you open the capillaries because your body is instantly saying, okay, my skin's too warm. I've got to cool it off. Let's set some blood flow to help cool the skin off. It's a natural opening of the capillaries. And when you do that, more of your blood then gets diverted into your skin, which is a massive organ, and gets pulled away from your body's core. So that effect of warming your skin suddenly sets your body up to cool off very fast. So you get this very short warming period that raises your skin temperature by some small amount. And it's, you don't need a long time. But then when the warming stops, your body has been primed to cool off very quickly because all your capillaries are open. And it's that cooling off stage after the warming that helps sleep onset. And, depending on what study you look at, there's numbers as high as getting to sleep, 26% faster and getting deeper sleep. Now, the warming in the morning is the other side of it. And that's your body's metabolism picking up and preparing to do some work for the day. And that's, human evolution. And so, with some of the biohacking tricks I've developed with the machine, you go to bed with a little bit of warming for a short period, sets you up for sleep. You cool yourself during the night, and you wake yourself up at an hour of your choosing with heat. And it works phenomenally.
Wow. Interesting. We've talked a lot on the show about, bringing yourself to sleep and waking yourself up with light. We haven't covered so much the temperature. So if I understand, it's heating yourself up before bed so that you can kind of move blood around. It's then allowing the body temperature to drop. So no heavy, thick kind of comforters and stuff that trap all your body heat in, let the body cool down as it wants to. And then the innovative thing, I guess, about what you've done is, a normal blanket can't heat you up in the morning as a form of temperature alarm clock, whereas, an external system can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we're all in a quest to get those perfect bedroom conditions. People talk about bedroom temperature, right? Mm-hmm. Bedroom temperature has a moderate impact on your temperature in bed. What has the most impact is your bed itself. And what kind of blankets do you use? What kind of sheets do you have? What kind of mattress do you have? Under the sheets, there is a microclimate, a temperature and humidity microclimate that's created by your body being in this relatively enclosed space of your sheets and your mattress. That's the temperature that's most important. Now, folks have found, okay, if you drop your room temperature to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, for example, or 68, that microclimate in the bed tends to be a little cooler and a little bit better for you. But the reality is, if you can affect that microclimate of the bed around your body directly, which is some of the technologies I've developed, it has a far more powerful impact on your ability to manipulate the body temperatures needed for sleep than adjusting the thermostat on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, I guess what kind of pillow or blanket or system do you use if, the climate's being controlled by a system that's moving the air? Is there a special blanket that you need?
Well, are we talking about the special technology I've worked on, or?
Yeah, I guess we should go into that a little bit first, of kind of like, how does the system work and how does it control climate? And tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So I've called the system the BedJet, and it's an air-powered climate comfort machine for your bed. It gives instant on-demand cooling, instant on-demand heating. It's the most powerful technology in the world right now for either warming or cooling a bed. And when I say powerful, it can heat a king-size bed to feel like the sheets came out of the dryer in about 2 minutes. Cool. When you press the button for cool, we've had third-party labs verify this. Within 10 seconds, you're feeling the cooling. And within a minute or less, we're reducing the humidity in the bed, which is another element of feeling hot or stuffy or uncomfortable. So we start with this base technology that's got muscle, right, when it comes to temperature. The second piece that we've added to it, which is really the biohack here, is the ability to program custom cooling and heating profiles for every hour of the night. So we talked about, you want to start with warming, then stay cool for the rest of the night and wake yourself up with heat. So we added smarts to the machine to enable you to, at first you enter in some basic elements of age and body type and sleep preferences, and to give you a sample profile that you can begin tailoring to be perfect for you. Everybody's different and everybody's bed is a little bit different. But that ability to vary the climate of your bed, literally hour by hour, and tailoring it to your own sleep biorhythms, that's the foundation of the technology. Now, the air goes into the bed. It goes into a what we call an air comforter, which is, if you can imagine a down comforter with no filling, it's got hollow pockets and flow cavities inside. The air flows inside this special comforter and then diffuses down into your sleeping area and the bed. And then you put your normal blankets and pillows and such over it. So using the technology I sleep with, it actually doesn't matter what your normal blankets are. You can pile on a winter weight down comforter. You can pile on a simple blanket or quilt. The machine will govern the microclimate of your bed. It doesn't matter what's on top of you at that point.
Interesting. You mentioned third-party labs. I'm really interested in have you guys done any sleep studies with this stuff? And what metrics are we, when we assess sleep quality, are we looking at, delta waves and theta waves? Are we looking at times people wake up? Tell me a little bit about how quality of sleep is assessed, and also any work that you guys have done to assess the impact of your product.
Right. So the first stage of this endeavor was just creating the technology and getting it out there. And it's been out there. It's still new. It's been available for about 2.5 years now. Now, in that very short 2.5 years, and this is a testimony to how impactful this kind of technology in our BedJet can impact people's sleep. In that short period, it's become the number one customer rated product in the entire mattress category on all of Amazon. It's a pretty grand statement, but the numbers are
Congratulations.
There. It's quite an achievement. And I'll tell you, as the chef who cooked up that dinner, it's incredibly pleasing for me to get that kind of response. So we have, these thousands of people, menopausal women who get hot flashes and night sweats, athletes who just burn hot at night, couples who have different sleep temperature preferences and they're fighting over the thermostat. We get thousands of these folks writing in telling us, wow, this thing has really changed my sleep. So anecdotally, we know it works. The next stage of the technology that we've just gotten into this year, we've been collaborating with a very prominent sleep doctor in Manhattan, Dr. Jordan Stern, who is a founding member of the National Sleep Foundation's Sleep Technology Council. So very, very well published guy. He's also a researcher. We now have an institutional review board approved clinical study underway with the BedJet technology. So we know anecdotally it works. We know the technology in the machine lines up with known sleep science and medical research, but there's nothing like a peer-reviewed, IRB-approved clinical medical study driven by a medical principal investigator. And so we have that underway. We're actually enrolling now. So if there's, any listeners we're focused right now on menopausal hot flash night sweat community, because the machine is very impactful to those folks who have really what amounts to a medical condition with temperature that affects their sleep. Mm-hmm. But we expect that study to be concluded sometime at the end of this year or early next year.
Very cool. And what kind of metrics are you guys going to be looking for? I mean, I think it is enough to anecdotally say people feel more rested and everything. But I always wonder, with placebo effects and everything that they are, I always wonder how we can assess actual sleep quality. Is it heart rhythm? Is it brain waves?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. And for the sleep study, we have both objective and subjective criteria. The subjective criteria is a questionnaire, right? Are you sleeping better? Is it relieving your symptoms? Can you quantify us on a scale of 1 to 10 with 10 different questions, right? That is open to the placebo effect. We all know that the feeling that you're doing something for yourself may impact, the efficacy of how you perceive it. So the other half of it, which is the objective test, the clinical subjects all go to bed with sleep sensors. And so they start 2 weeks without using the technology with a sleep sensor, get a baseline. Here's how you sleep. Here's how many hours you sleep. Here's the number of sleep interruptions you have per night. And the sleep sensor also monitors heart rate. Mm-hmm. So we get their baseline of where they started, and then they use the BedJet technology for a week just to get acclimated to it. It does take a few nights to sort of figure it all out. Then we capture the sleep data for several weeks after using the machine on a nightly basis. So I'm an engineer. I base everything on data. Data is very important to me. Anecdotal stories, anecdotal reviews, customer reviews, they're nice. But the next frontier for us with this technology, this biohacking technology, is approaching the medical community. And you can't approach the medical community without clinical data. Mm-hmm. So that's a big, big focus for us right now.
Absolutely. Very, very cool. I want to change gears actually, because we brushed over the whole NASA space station thing, but I always am really, really interested at these kinds of higher levels, the biohacking that isn't called biohacking. So I find it really interesting. A lot of musicians, if they get sick while they're on tour, they have these adrenaline shots that they take. I imagine astronauts have a lot of stuff like that, and especially in the actual spacesuit itself. So I'm wondering if you could share it with us. I mean, this obviously, it sounds like was when you were kind of turned on to this idea of biohacking, this idea that devices or behaviors or practices could alter the human experience or the human capacity. So what kind of cool biohacks were you exposed to when you were working on the spacesuit?
My area of responsibility was within what they call the PLSS, the primary life support systems. So these are the systems in the suit that kept you at the right temperature, that made sure you had fresh oxygen, that made sure there wasn't too much moisture in the suit. All the things that when you're trapped inside this airtight little container that's wrapped around your body, all of the electromechanical elements that you need to be comfortable. And, simple things like fogging up of a spacesuit visor. What do you do if the guy's breathing hard and the only access he has to seeing the outside world is all fogged up from breath and condensation from his mouth being only 3 inches away? So, there weren't a lot of biohacks, but, there's decades and decades of design and study that have been put into that suit. And I worked on it in, I'm going to date myself here. I worked on it in the mid 90s, while the mid to late 90s, while the space shuttle was still, in its peak and missions all the time. I was fortunate to work with some really intelligent and really brilliant people. We had a guy who actually designed the toilet for the space shuttle. And, we called him Dr. Flush. It was a really, really interesting group of people. Were there biohacks? I wouldn't say in the traditional sense that you and I think of them. When we think of folks like military Air Force pilots who are running a 14-hour flight, are they going to take a supplement? Or are they going to take some special thing to keep them alert? Probably. The spacesuit guys, we weren't really exposed to too much of that. I didn't really see a lot of it. The suit is designed. I mean, one great biohack in life is not having to go and take a bio pit stop to relieve yourself. And
right. So the suit does that,
things built into the suit does that for you. You don't go inside because you need to take a pee.
How interesting. That's really, really interesting. Okay, cool. Very interesting just to think about. And I had a moment of kind of like thinking about Big Bang Theory and how, like designing the toilets on the space station is this huge engineering challenge as well. I want to ask you, Mark, we love to assign homework on the show. So I wanted to see if you had any homework for our listeners around sleep or just anything. I mean, you're interesting fella. I imagine you have some pretty interesting like work habits or productivity tips that you might want to share. But what are some kind of homework assignments that you'd like for people to try out?
Well, the first thing, I'll stay with sleep. The first thing, many people who aren't getting enough sleep don't even realize it. People get into a routine of, they go to bed, they're on their laptop, they're on their tablet, they do whatever, they're up till 2 a.m, they've got to go to work. Most of the folks out there who are sleep deprived don't even understand it. They don't even know. And it's almost an epidemic now because it's become a lifestyle habit for so many people. So, if I were to give homework to folks, and again, let's remind people the downsides of inadequate sleep, the things that happen to you when you're chronically deprived of sleep: weight gain, depression, diabetes, heart disease, higher chance of stroke. These aren't wishy-washy things, and the correlations are there. This isn't, people from the alternative medicine or Eastern medicine telling you. This is real doctors. This is real medical research saying that lack of sleep will do this to you. So the homework I would give is track your sleep. See how many hours you're actually getting. If you're not getting 7 to 8 solid hours, and I'll tell you, most people are getting 4, 5, or 6.
Wow.
You're not getting enough. And you're falling into that category of people whose days are not as good as they could be because your nights don't have the proper sleep in them.
Wow. That's a really strong point just about the impact. Are there any apps that you particularly like for tracking sleep or products? I know the Neo is no longer available, but what do you like for tracking sleep at home?
So I can tell you this from the sleep research that we're doing in the medical clinical trial. So we have to use a sleep sensor, and we've scanned the market and looked at all the different sensors out there. The one I like and the one that we're using in our medical study is the BedJet. Okay. And it's a nice device because it doesn't interfere with your body. You don't have to wear it. It's not a wristband. It's not a strap around your chest. It's just a sensor strip, under the mattress that you don't even know is there, and tracks all the data you want without you having to physically do anything or change your sleep habits to make sure you're tracking.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I'm going to check that out, and we'll put a link to that also in the podcast episode on the blog post. I know we're running a little short on time here, Mark, But I wanted to ask you if there are any other kind of productivity hacks or biohacks or habits that you have that you feel help you perform at a higher level.
So I am one of very few people who have bypassed social media since its inception and growth 10 or 15 years ago.
The ultimate productivity hack.
The ultimate productivity hack. I've been a super nerd my whole life, Jonathan. I built my first computer in college. I've been as pro tech. I've been the early adopter of everything. I had the very first smartphone before it was even called a smartphone. So I've always been on the bleeding edge of things. I love being there. When the social media thing happened, I'm going to be that guy who calls it the Facebook.
The Facebook.
It was kind of a turnoff to me. You know, I'm a little bit of a private person. It's not important to me to sort of project myself out into the world with people I barely know. And as it became more embedded into our culture and our lifestyle, I began to resist it even more because I saw it as an addiction. And I saw all the signs of addiction that I see with, you know, folks in a Starbucks coffee line at the airport at 6 a.m. or just itching for that morning cup of coffee. I saw that same sort of attachment to social media. And I've been fortunate that I've bypassed it. I've never had an active Facebook profile other than one for business. I don't have a single friend on Facebook. I have never tweeted. I have never Pinterest. I have never Instagrammed. And, you know, I get flack for that from some folks who say, hey, join modern society. But I get a heck of a lot more work done than everybody else.
Oh, I bet. It's funny because those of us who are on all those technologies have to engineer all these. I mean, I have apps that keep me off of Facebook on certain days of the week because those are my writing days and not days that I, you know, do our Facebook marketing and stuff like that. And I have all these, you know, weird workaround solutions like turning off my router when I need to write. And you've just bypassed that whole thing. I like that as a kind of very different productivity hack than the kinds people typically mention.
You know, there's a whole generation of folks growing up now that don't know what it's like to be unplugged. They've never been unplugged since the moment they were children. And I have found that the ability to unplug makes many people uncomfortable with just trying it out for folks that are embedded in social media. But truly, when you can be in the here and now and not paying attention to a Facebook chat box or an Instagram update, and this is a subject, I'm sure, of many podcasts for you in the future, or maybe you've already had them. But the impact of social media and that constant notification of something new, that taps into something primordial in your brain. It taps into the areas of your brain that are related to addiction.
Totally.
The growth of social media has not been that it's just cool. It's tapping into something in our brains that sort of addicts us to it and ties us to it, just as a heroin addict, you know, gets addicted to their drugs. So I certainly don't want to talk down to anybody who loves that stuff. I don't look down on anybody who spends an hour a day on Facebook. That's a personal choice. But for me, that has been the ultimate biohack to turn me into a superhuman because I get an extra 2 to 3 hours a day other people don't have.
I love it. That's the motivation I needed. I really got to put more restrictions around this stuff. The problem is, like, even if you aren't the kind of person who just scrolls through Facebook, like a lot of these products, you can't just turn off. You remember when you could turn off Skype or you could turn off AOL Instant Messenger and people couldn't send you messages?
Right.
But now, like WhatsApp and iMessage and SMS and email, these stuffs are 24/7. And so if you go offline, you're borrowing time from tomorrow when you're going to have to catch up on 1,000 messages. Someone's got to come up with a solution. Solution to disconnect us.
Just disconnect and, you know, learn to use the old-fashioned phone call. It's the phone call is becoming a lost art socially. The social phone call is becoming a lost art.
Totally. Mark, we've run up on the end of our time. I want to give you a chance to let people know where they can learn more about you and about the BedJet, which I think I'm going to check one out as well. So where do we send everyone?
Sure. You can find us at bedjet.com. We are still a tiny startup tech company. We consider ourselves a sleep tech company. If anyone ever wants to reach me or talk to me, you can just simply write in at the website at bedjet.com. Just write in at the email address there, and that email will find its way to me.
Awesome. And then I'll ask you the final question that we like to ask at the end of every episode, which is if people take away just one big lesson from this and they implement it in their lives and they carry it with them for the rest of their lives, what would you hope for that lesson to be?
Doing the right things for your body and, using simple biohack tricks that your body actually likes isn't just good for you. Forget all the stuff about the diabetes and the blood pressure and the depression. Those are all important things to manage in your life. But paying attention to these things isn't just good for you. It feels good. You feel better. You go through your day in a better mood and with more energy. And that is priceless. And so, if I leave the listeners with anything here, it's this isn't just about your long-term health and, pulling some levers to be a little healthy in the long term. This is about feeling great during your days, and paying attention to your sleep is one of the number one levers you can pull to get to that happy place.
Awesome. A fantastic note to end on. Mark, I really want to thank you for your time and for sharing your wisdom. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience did as well.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciated the time.
Pleasure. Take care.
Have a good one.
All right, super friends, that's it for this week's episode. We hope you really, really enjoyed it and learned a ton of applicable stuff that can help you go out there and overcome the impossible. If so, please do us a favor and leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or however you found this podcast. In addition to that, we are always looking for great guest posts on the blog or awesome guests right here on the podcast. So if you know somebody or you are somebody or you have thought of somebody who would be a great fit for the show or for our blog, please reach out to us either on Twitter or by email. Our email is info@becomingaSuperhuman.com. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.becomingaSuperhuman.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.